All right. Next on the agenda, 7.3 Carrington Park upgrade, a community-led development project with Carterton. And I'll hand it over to you, Glenda.
Thank you. I get the pleasure of getting all the awesome papers today. So I am going to ask Kirsty to come up as well, and we do have Lucy online. So if you have any gnarly questions that myself and Kirsty can't answer, Lucy has offered to step in and give us some clarification. But Carrington Park paper. So previously we have worked with Karpai, and we've agreed for Karpai to do some scoping and look at the general arrangements for what Carrington Park can look like going forward. So they have done some consultation with the community. They've got a plan in place. They've been working with WSP, and this paper is to look at what the next steps are. So they're looking at continuing, they want to continue with the detailed design stage and then look at some options for going forward from there. So I'm going to take the paper as read, and I know there's questions, so we'll just go from there if that's all right.
Yep, okay. Right, okay, so we'll go straight into questions now. So I'll start with Rebecca.
All right, thank you. I actually just have one question, and it's probably more a question for Jeff or Kelly if she's in the room. And it's around the depreciation and warranties. So I know warranties wasn't mentioned in the report that has been submitted as part of the agenda, but it has been mentioned in the past, I think, around possibly some items having a 10 or a 25-year warranty. So my question is, when do we actually need to start funding depreciation? Would it be, I imagine it would be post that warranty period, because anything that would fail within that time should be replaced and therefore its useful life should start again. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the depreciation funding for this asset will occur, as you say, after the life of the asset has expired, because this would be a new asset, and therefore will be loan funded to start with, because growth assets and renewal assets are loan funded, and renewal assets are depreciation funded. So this is a growth asset, so it would be loan funded. And the class of assets would fit with the similar class for all the other sorts of playgrounds or park type assets that we've had. And then the depreciation funding will kick in with the same class as those. So if we have those assets as a 10-year life, then we'll wait 10 years. If they're a 20-year life, then we'll wait 20 years. Regardless of the manufacturer's warranty, it will default to our asset depreciation policy as to how we fund it.
Okay, so we would start funding depreciation from the day the asset is functional. Is that correct?
No, we would start funding depreciation after the first rotation of its life. So the first lot of funding for that asset is going to be loan funded. Once the loan's paid off, it'll then default to a renewal asset, and then we will depreciation fund a renewal asset.
Even though we're not going to have an associated loan?
Correct.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Rebecca. And is that all questions, Rebecca? Okay, thank you. Brian.
Yeah, thank you. My main question was around that depreciation, and thanks, Jeff, for answering that. The only other thing that I'm a little bit not concerned but more worried about is getting this up and running with basically no financial input from the council other than in kind, basically. And so whilst I support the project, I'm a little bit hesitant on the securing of the external funding. So if that goes ahead, well, yeah, I can't see any reason why we shouldn't support stage one from external sources funded. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll just keep it to questions at the moment, but thank you, Brian. Steve?
I just had one question at this point, and it was just about whether the group of key stakeholders have started to come together for the project yet.
Lucy, do you want to answer that one?
Sure thing. It was always our intention to get to the point where council were willing to approve us to go to the next stage before we took the design back to community. However, we have, with the knowledge that this was going to this public meeting, been out to members of the community co-design process and sought their support, which has been rapid and ready. And as we saw from the Youth Council, there's an absolute willingness and desire to see this project moving forward. We don't see any issues with the community coming back round to support the leading of this project.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further follow-up to that, Steve? You happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dale?
No questions, Your Worship, just a whole lot of comment. Cheers.
Okay, thank you. Jill?
I might have missed something, but has there been any consideration of the ongoing maintenance of the project once it's obviously in council ownership?
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Good question. At this stage, it's not in our annual plan. So any ongoing maintenance will be picked up as part of the Parks and Reserves budget at the moment. If there is additional ongoing maintenance that we discover once the project has been completed, then we'll have to include that in either next annual plan or next long-term plan. But at this stage, we're assuming the Parks and Reserves budgets will pick up the maintenance. They'll be relatively new assets, so we're hoping in the early stages of their life, there won't be significant cost.
Thank you. Robin?
No questions, just comments for a little bit later. Rebecca and Steve hit the nail on the head with mine, so thank you.
Thank you. I've got a question just to do with the governance structure for the future. With the limited lifespan of Carterton as it exists now, it's important to have an entity, I believe, in that governance structure that is able to work with securing loans and different things like that. What's the plan for the future with the governance structure?
I'll take that one.
So
it's always been our intention to have like a Friends of Carrington Park or a Carrington Park advisory group. Right from the initial hui that we had, which just saw 10 members from iwi Council and community come together and key stakeholders like Carterton School, we've made sure that we've kept that connection going through. And so it's always been the intention that that's how the Carrington Park project will continue. In terms of Carterton, finishing in some capacity, we're not quite sure what's happening with that just yet, but it's the intention over the next 6 months that we again make sure that the skills and expertise sit within our community to manage a project like this. We have an expert fund writer coming in to run a program in June. We have plans for a project management course also later this year. And it's our intention around the advisory to have obviously key stakeholders like council, the school, iwi involved. So Carterton have just been representative of our community voice. By us stepping away, this will carry on.
Okay, thank you. So it's envisioned that the Friends of Carrington Park, or whatever it becomes, will become a legal entity and able to secure loans and funding.
It'll be up to the group to determine how they see that, but otherwise there are other fund holders that we can access. There's also the possibility that Carterton will continue just as a fund holder, not in support of ongoing facilitating though.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any further questions until we get to the discussion? No further questions. So thank you very much, Simone, Lucy and Kirsty and Glenda. We'll now go to comment discussion. So I will hand it over to you, Dale.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, this has been, I mean, my thought process on this has continued to evolve, I guess. And just recent times, I've been talking to lots of people, as I'm sure we all have, people both for and against. And again, it's pretty refreshing. The people that are for this project have been so positive and encouraging rather than criticising and abusive, which is kind of what we sometimes get when people aren't in favour of something. So I guess for me, that there's two parts to this in my head. Firstly, do I support it in principle, and if so, what part? And I suppose where I start is that Carrington Park is an existing council asset, and assets require ongoing maintenance and periodic upgrades, and traditionally are fully funded by rates. Here, Carterton is providing us with a community consulted concept plan without costing the ratepayers, and are offering to proceed to detailed design and stage physical works subject to outside funding being sourced. And I think that's a good deal for Carrington Council and Carterton. So I support the project in principle, which I guess excludes option one. And secondly, for me, supporting the project means the fully staged project as presented. Because just to approve the design as an option two, I don't think it enables the confidence or commitment to anything further. So that would limit it to what is on the horizon, which would be stage one. Option three supports stage one only, which again, in effect, it limits the extent of the fundraising and the line of sight. Option 5 in the audit paper, it does provide for more consideration and potentially wider consultation as part of maybe a future long-term plan process or reserve management plan, and certainly would give council time for this government's local government reforms to play out. So I understand the merits of those outcomes, but for me, option 5 also delays the project, and I accept the challenging times we're all facing right now. There are real benefits in being aspirational right now, I feel. One is that Carterton is here now until next year anyway, and they've got the energy and the expertise and the relationships and the partnerships in place to attract funding that council couldn't. And without outside funding, the project's unlikely to proceed, and council would be left to fund future upgrades from rates. And I suppose the bottom line is, regardless of any political uncertainty, there's always going to be a Carterton. There's always going to be people wanting to enjoy Carrington Park and to want to help improve it. And we've got a responsibility to maintain that asset. So I want the project to receive support now and to ultimately go ahead. My family and I love Carrington Park. It was one of the first experiences we had of Carterton when we started looking for our forever home. And yeah, I think we need to take advantage of every opportunity to bring in outside funds to invest in this. So for me, option 4 is gets my tick, because I know I support the project and I want to support it in its entirety. And let's see how aspirational we can be and how far we can get with outside funding. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. Okay, Joel.
Yeah, comments. I'm probably the least one person in this group that doesn't know as much as everybody else. So I've kind of watched very much from the sideline, so don't know a whole lot about the detail. But clearly, if we can secure the external funding for both stages 1 and 2, then it's going to be an amazing project. So yeah, but it does come obviously at a huge cost, and I guess it depends on where that comes from. So yeah, good on you for going on. I know it hasn't been easy at times, but you've kept on, and yeah, let's see where it takes us.
Thank you, Joel. Robin.
Keep touching the screen. I reiterate sort of what Dale has said. I think you know, Carrington Park is is so well utilised, but also totally underutilised. There's a huge part of our community that I think are missing out, and I think Simone and Lucy, what you girls have done and what the stakeholders have come up with. I wasn't part of any stakeholder meetings or anything, but I have read all the documentation and listened to your presentations. So I feel I am kind of up with the play a little bit, well, enough. I personally think if we're going to do this, which I feel we need to for the future, I'm definitely in favour of out of options 3 and 4 going for option 4. It did fill me with confidence that option 5 does note that it of the council's contributions. That was, as Lucy knows, a lot of my questioning was how much is you wanting from council, and I was always concerned that council was going to have to find some money from somewhere, which made me very nervous. I think it is all subject to external funding, but I think we need to be bold, and we need to get this moving. So thank you both for all the work and your drive and passion for bringing this to us and really making us take notice. And when I say you two, it's also the stakeholders and the wider community that you have engaged with that have been on the journey the whole way.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Steve.
Thanks, Greg. Look, I just want to talk about my part in this from the beginning, because I have found it difficult with us getting to this stage. And my reasons for that are when we first got together, we were told it was around $3.5 million that this project was going to be based around. And WSP were in the room, and we were told as the group that think big, nothing's off the table. And so we saw lots of ideas and concepts came back, and really I felt that things had gone from something that was achievable to something that was possibly heading to the moon. But nothing's out of impossible. But as you know, concepts came back to us, and the figures were just out there, and it was utilising the park outside of what should have been within the scope. And at that point, I thought there was an opportunity to say to WSP, look, you need to really dial this back and to keep it at within, say, that $3.5 million, which was talked about initially, and do something which I felt was possibly achievable for our community with the fundraising, whether it comes from lotteries, DIA or whoever. I just feel that $6 million is, if the funding doesn't come and we get to stage 1 and stage 2, or even just stage 1 done and stage 2 doesn't happen, I feel like we're not completing the story, which is all part of this, the whole thing. So I'm a little bit disappointed that I feel WSP has gone a little bit rogue in what they've done with Carpi and with the group, because me as a builder, I've seen this numerous times from architects designing a house. It comes to me and it goes out to tender, and the prices come back in there $200,000 or $300,000 over what the budget was given to the architect to design that house within. And this is where I'm seeing this project at this point. And I do want to say I'm really thankful to Lucy and Simone and the team and everyone for putting this all together, and for Ra for his incredible story that he's come up with, that the park's been based around. I'm really concerned about having water play within the park scope, because from initial discussions I felt that was off the table, and it worries me the ongoing cost to council for the maintenance of that water area and all the equipment that is associated with it. I know there are reservations amongst some of the management team as well. So it just that side of it just worries me. The future maintenance costs of the whole park, knowing those final designs and everything of all the play equipment, it's really up in the air what this is going to cost council going forward, because there will be costs. And whether it's $50,000 annually or $5,000 annually or $150,000 annually, that is a little bit scary to think about, to go on top of our rates as such. And yeah, I am for the project to go ahead. I'm just a little bit disappointed with how I feel the project's just exploded into something which it probably shouldn't have been. And we've seen with what's been achievable with Kapai, with the slide and the pools, and that's just amazing how the community's come together, and Kapai's done that. And I think the project done in smaller secular lots as such could have worked a lot better than just lumping the community with something that's going to cost $6.5 million, and hopefully we get the funding. So I do want to see the project go ahead, and I just hope we do get the funding that's required. So, thanks, Greg.
Yeah, no, thank you for your in-depth comment, Steve. Thank you, much appreciated. Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Well done, Simone and Lucy, for bringing this project through, and all the work that you and your committee and people have been putting it together. It's really good. I'm a little bit like Steve. I have reservations in the ongoing costs of maintenance and depreciation. Depreciation, so not so much, but as Steve says, when you start playing with water, it costs, and it costs big. I can see that how the project has escalated as well, but there are some really great ideas in there, and some really great equipment, which I'm not knocking, because yeah, it's amazing if it does go ahead. So yeah, whilst I'm happy to support option 3, the stage 1, securing the funding from external sources, and from if we get that up and running easily enough, I think the rest will follow quite easily. But as another thought is, we probably only get one shot at this funding money, so I don't think the funding money will be there in 2, 3, 5 years time. So we've got to consider that as well. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I am reading through these papers and having a look at the documents. I went through and made some notes around just the well-beings in council, and so I'd just like to run through those and some of the notes that I've written around why I think that the upgrading Carrington Park is a fantastic decision for Carterton and for the wider Wairarapa. So first of all, opportunities like this don't come around very often in local government, and this is too good of an opportunity for us to pass up. A project like this connects so many strands of our community and ticks all of the well-beings that local government is guided by. Just like to commend Carterton on the community consultation, which has been very well done and documented, with some inclusive guiding design principles developed and the concepts designed by the best, Catherine Hamilton, who has experience in designing some of the top playgrounds in New Zealand. And just like to comment on that this is not escalation, it's actually listening to what the community has said about being aspirational and being transformational, which can't be achieved just by going small. So around some of the well-beings, first off, we've got social, there's a need for kids to be outside and connect with nature more, and there's a huge amount of research that benefits learning through play. A lot of schools can't afford to put in these beautiful spaces, and the kapahaka stage could also double as an outdoor education space for our tamariki. And hopefully with the shared pathway connecting all schools that's being proposed, this playground will only be a 10-minute cycle away, if that. And I'd just like to note the encouraging letters of support that we received from our local principals last week. Around cultural, this is an opportunity to partner with Hurunui Orangi Marae and iwi to bring Māori stories and tangata whenua history into our public spaces, something which Carterton has very little of at the moment. This is important for a sense of belonging and reflection of self, especially for our rangatahi and tamariki Māori. I can also see some fantastic matariki events being held in the park, as matariki is becoming, or is now a national holiday. Around environmental, this park will enable us to showcase our natural environment and provide opportunities for learning about our endangered biodiversity, the night skies, and climate change through play. An example of this is the way that Kāpai and Catherine have used the water play concept, which has been somewhat controversial, but I would say it's actually been done very well to educate about where our water comes from, the importance of recycling our water for outdoor use, and the role that clean water has with our native critters, such as the kōkapu, and that will all be incorporated into that water play space and being a real educational asset. Finally, just around the economic benefits, we've had a lot of discussions in the past around our CBD development, and a development like this is a cornerstone development which will inspire others to move forward in their endeavours as well. And it also ties in beautifully with the destination management plan which we've just endorsed, around family-friendly activities to bring visitors right into the heart of Carterton and spend their dollars. And we could see in the attached research that family and friends and family fun are in the top 3 reasons to visit another region. And I know personally, when we travel as a family, we always seek out the parks. And also for just our local residents, I know my kids think it's a fantastic day out when we just go to the park in Martinborough or Featherston in Masterton. So there's a huge amount of economic benefits and possibilities. The final thing that I just want to say, that I would struggle to find another council project that supports so many of our goals as a council. If you have a look at some of our strategies, our plans that we've adopted over the past 5 years, this ticks so many of the boxes. I'm just thinking, our positive ageing strategy, our dark sky reserves, economic development strategy, 5 Towns Trails, and it will also complement our eastern growth areas for years to come. So I support approving delivery on stages 1 to 3, the in-kind support from Carterton District Council, and yeah, I support this wholeheartedly. It's a lot of money to fundraise, I do acknowledge that, but I have got a lot of faith in our community to pull together and make this happen. So thank you, Lucy, and thanks, Simone.
Kia ora. I see there's a couple of supplementary questions, but I'll just make a comment first and then I'll go to the supplementary questions. So from my perspective, just acknowledge the work that's gone on and the passion and the drive, Lucy and Simone especially, seeing this as an opportunity. And I am very, very supportive, but to me there's a couple of bottom lines which we need to address, and that's financial risk for our community. So those bottom lines are that the plan that goes forward, that becomes a future plan for the park, has to be endorsed by a community, and a community need to understand the risks associated with that. So that includes the water play, ongoing costs, that is essential. But I'm quite happy as a council to have a plan, future plan for the park that gets rolled out as the funding comes available, but it's got to be realistic, and it's got to be supported, endorsed by the community. And then the next thing is that just to eliminate risk, and when there's large sums of money involved, I think it's essential that there's a separate body other than Carterton that is responsible for securing funding, and that needs to be set up as an entity that can really focus, whether it's the Friends of the Park or whatever it is, it needs to be there, because the last thing our ratepayers want is us to be left with a project that we have to has to come out of rates basically to continue. But it's all about communication, and I just really look forward to the next steps going forward. once if we, depending on the decisions. But yeah, it's all on communication, and this is outstanding for Carterton if it can go forward. So thank you. And I'll go to the supplementary questions. And Dale was first. Yeah. It's got a comment. Sorry.
It was more of a comment to say it's a bit unfortunate that this item is in the same agenda paper as setting the rates in the annual plan, because I'm aware that there's people out there who've talked to me that are really hurting, and with cost of living increases and fuel and food and all of that, and to some people a park is considered to be a nice to have, and some people who've talked to me, in their view, council should step well back from nice to haves. My perspective, as I said right at the start, is Carrington Park is an existing asset, and we're responsible to maintain and develop it over time. So doing nothing's not an option. We can't step back from it and let it turn back into a paddock just because of other factors. I think the potential for outside funding at this point in time is just too good to pass up. Whether it eventuates to the level that we want, only time will tell. But to not go for all it's worth now would be a huge mistake and a missed opportunity, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. Robin.
Kia ora. A couple of things that I just want to reiterate. I agree with Dale. It is unfortunate that it's on the same agenda as the annual plan. Steve, you mentioned that the stages 1 to 3 are 6.2. Actually, all we are looking at approving or adopting today is stages 1 and 2. It's not under the recommendation for all 3 stages, which fills me with more confidence that it is achievable. And I just really want to stress that all of them are subject to Kapai Carterton securing funding from external sources. And I think that's something in our communications that we do need to stress. Yes, there is a note that council's contributions will be ongoing maintenance, but as when the question around depreciation was brought up, and Jeff sort of mentioned that these are going to be new assets. They're not going to be assets that are only going to last a year or so and then are going to require the ongoing maintenance. And I think the stakeholders group that I know that Lucy and Simone are going to be pulling together to Friends of Carrington Park or whatever it may be, I really have confidence in the group, and I'm guessing some of those people may be ones that have sent emails through in support as well. I've got a huge amount of confidence that they will be able to get that external funding, especially if Kapai are holding these workshops in funding applications and things. So I think we just need to reiterate to our community that subject to external funding, number one. Number two, we are only talking at the stage of stage 1 and 2, although the plan may have an option for a further stage 3 at a later date, which then again, that stage 3 may change once we've got stage 1 and 2. The stage 3 that's sort of envisaged now might actually not be relevant, and the stage 3 might be something completely different. So that's my 2 cents back.
Thank you, Robin. So is there any more supplementary comment?
Rebecca, then Steve.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, we probably should just clarify around that stage 3. I did ask Glenda a little earlier in the week to clarify that as well. And I think it is implied in our recommendation around the existing budgets, but it would be good to spell that out. And I'm personally supportive of council developing those extra landscaping areas over the next 10 years. I just wanted to address the cost and the risk comments that have come up. From the way I see it, CDC only stands to benefit. We can only win from this. And I don't think, and possibly Lucy or Jeff could correct me on this, but I don't think there's going to be any additional cost to the ratepayer for at least 10 years. Everything else is coming from existing budgets, which are in-kind support, or they'll be covered by warranty, or there'll be external funding. So it's a win-win situation for me, and it's over to the community now to make it happen, in my opinion.
Thank you, Rebecca. Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I appreciate what you mentioned, Robin. Just the overall picture is around 6 point something million. That's all I was saying before. But again, it would have been really, what I would have really liked as part of this process with what's in front of us today is if we could have had some kind of comparison with a park that's been completed out of the district, whether in Hawke's Bay, Palmerston North, or wherever, Whanganui, sorry, there's parks that have been completed of a similar size, just to get an idea of what their maintenance costs are. It's not going to be 10 years free of cost to CDC. I guarantee you that right now. That will not be, there'll be no cost. That's crazy to be thinking like that. It just would have been good to have some kind of figure in there of what the potential maintenance costs might be, even after 5 years, of what our community might be up for. And they could have had some kind of say in it then as to, oh yeah, we're prepared to take that risk and to have that on our rates. So.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Is there any more comment? Okay, thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move to the recommendations, but I just wanted to make one final comment is this meeting today is really at the heart of local government. As mentioned before, we're approving a draft annual plan, and at the same time, we've got a project like this, and it really, this is an elected member. You know, we've really got to work hard, and I know I've put a lot of work into preparing for this meeting, as you all have, and so we really need to focus on the wider community, not just the voices that have been in our ears just recently, and just see what the benefits are. So yeah, it's not often you have ordinary meetings that really focus on the real heart of local government, and that's what we got here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the recommendations, and I'll take them all separately. So we're going to go to the first one. We received the report. So can I have a mover, please? Moved by Robin, seconded by Jill. All those in favour, raise your hand, please. That's everyone. So the report is received. Thank you. Number 2, adopts the Carpi Carrington Park General Arrangement Concept Plan as presented and supports them to engage WPS to complete detailed design. Can I have a mover, please? Dale, seconded by Rebecca. All those in favour, raise your hand, please. That's unanimous, so that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to recommendation 3. So just bear in mind that there is a recommendation 4 as well. So if recommendation 3 fails, we'll then go to recommendation 4. So recommendation 3 is approves delivery of stage 1 for $1.85 million plus $462,000, 25% contingency, subject to Carpi Carterton securing the funding from external sources. Do we have a mover? Moved by Brian. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Jill. All those in favour, raise your hand. There's 2 in favour and everyone else against. So that motion fails. Well, that recommendation fails. So we'll go to recommendation 4, which approves delivery of stage 1 and 2 for $3.7 million plus $925,000, 25% contingency, subject to Carpi Carterton securing external funding. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Rebecca, seconded by Dale. All those in favour, raise your hand, please. That's a majority in favour, so that's carried. Thank you. And now we'll move to recommendation 5. Notes that council's contribution are land use, ongoing maintenance, depreciation, contract management of the WSP contract, and ongoing program of upgrade work from existing budgets. Can I have a mover, please? Robin, seconder. Jill, all those in favour, raise your hands, please. Dale, are you in favour? Yep. So that's a majority. So that's carried. Well done, everyone. Thank you. And thank you very much, Lucy and Simone and Kirsty and Glenda and Karpai Carterton. Very cool. And we look forward to the communication and engagement going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Yeah, great. Yeah.